When the bomb was dropped, it essentially obliterated 70,000 people instantaneously. And by the end of 1945, somewhere around 150,000 people had died from radiation and injuries and things like that. And the official number that was written on the gate here, and it's disputed, I've seen disputed in a lot of different places, was that a total of around 200,000 people died as a result of this attack. And of course, that doesn't count the bomb that was dropped in Nagasaki. That's just the one that was dropped here. This is called the A-bomb dome. And this was a building, one of the few that survived the blast from the atomic bomb, which was dropped essentially right above it. And it exploded about 600 meters above this building. And most of the things around it were completely turned to ash and obliterated. But because of its construction, it did not completely get evaporated. It's almost in the exact same condition it was during the attack. They've done a couple of restorations just to keep it from completely crumbling and falling apart. They're trying to maintain it like what it looked like right after the explosion. So you can see all this rubble, and you can see how it's just sitting kind of on this serene little river. And basically a 2 kilometer radius around this area was just completely flattened. And that's pretty damn scary. Just read another plaque that said basically the reason that this building exists and everything else got flattened is because it's built of obviously concrete, brick, and iron. And that the other reason that it didn't get flattened is because the explosion was just barely off from being directly above it. And because the force coming straight down didn't blow it over, essentially. It came down and gutted out the insides. And all the other buildings that were off the side, the explosion force would hit the side of the building and knock it over. So partially as a construction, but a majority of the reason that it's still standing here is because of its location compared to where the bomb was dropped. It says it was 600 meters up and 160 meters to the southwest is exactly where it went off. It's kind of an old grimy photograph, but this shows right after the explosion. This was taken in October of 1945. Of course, the bomb went off in early August of 1945, but you can see this is the dome that we've been standing at, and this is what everything else looked like. And like I said, it's flat. Like this area is just completely obliterated.
There's a clock over there. It's called the flower clock, and citizen watchmakers actually put their name on it. Like they made a little clock over there, and I guess I just think it's kind of wrong.
Oh, the manufacturer.
The manufacturer was like, yep.
Yeah, this is the place for advertising.
Yeah. You know, I really would like one of those A-bomb decorative clocks in my yard.
Okay, on this like very, very typical Japanese little street. Like that's a parking garage and an office building and just parking and vending machines and everything. This is a memorial dedicated to being the hypocenter. So 580 meters directly above me is where the atomic bomb went off. And it says here that the heat rays from the bomb were around 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's pretty damn warm. And looking the direction that I'm facing right now, that was a post-bomb photograph. It's pretty amazing to me that this gate, it's probably wooden, is still standing. It's pretty weird how some things didn't fall over, but almost everything else did. So this building was also a sort of survivor of the explosion. So you can see we're not far away from the A-bomb dome, which is right there. And says that everybody in the building was instantly killed, except for one guy who was in the basement, and he survived. So that's got to be pretty crazy. This is a monument to all of the children who died in the bomb blast, basically, and it is thousands and thousands and thousands of paper cranes. And the reason that they are paper cranes is because a little girl who was 2 years old at the time of the bomb, 10 years later, she developed leukemia, and she believed that if she folded 1,000 paper cranes, the leukemia wouldn't kill her. and she died before she finished, but now kids from all over the world and people from all over the world fold thousands and thousands of these things every year and send them here, and they store them in these big containers. And interestingly enough, I remember as a child, like being in like 3rd grade or something, and I remember my teacher had us, like all the class, fold a bunch of cranes and send them here. So that's weird, and I didn't really remember it until I saw it.
I like that little crane.
So during World War II, Japan, had invaded Korea, and a lot of the people from Korea that were here brought in essentially a slavery type of situation, where they were brought over and forced to work in labor camps and farms and things like that. And this monument is here because they estimate around 20,000 Koreans were killed in the dropping of the bomb, and this is dedicated directly to those Koreans. So if you know anything about Westerners, and you know accents, and you know how people dress and stuff, it's very obvious to anybody around us that we're American just because of the way we look and the way we sound and all those things. Question that everybody's probably going to be wondering is, as we're wandering around this essentially memorial to the atomic bomb dropping, do we feel like people are upset with our presence, or do we get dirty looks or anything? And the answer is absolutely not. Not one time has anybody here looked at us cross-eyed or looked upset about us being here or anything at all. They really present the park in a manner that's like, this park is for everyone, and it is for the declaration of peace, and it's very important that they have that type of feeling for it. And it's just not really in the modern Japanese psyche to be upset over something that happened that long ago, with it being such a complicated political situation at the time, obviously. So no, we don't feel like anybody doesn't want us here, and no, nobody has said anything nasty or looked upset or anything like that. I'm sure this is going to be hard to see on the camera, but there is a flame burning here, and the purpose of the flame is that they are going to keep it burning until complete nuclear disarmament has taken place. So they're going to keep this flame burning until nobody has any nuclear weapons left. So unfortunately, I think this is probably going to be burning for quite a while. This park feels a lot like the mall in Washington, D.C., with all the war memorials and different things, and just kind of the way it's laid out, like open park, and it's kind of in the middle of a city, and it's doesn't seem quite as big, but you kind of get the same feeling wandering around. So this room is basically a giant panoramic, 360-degree panoramic of what the city looked like right after the bomb went off. And it's made out of tile, and apparently there's 140,000 tiles, kind of representing the number of people that died. So this building we were just in has got a bunch of computers set up with headphones, and they have videos, and you can select like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testimonials that were recorded in like the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And it's just people survivors talking about why they lived in Hiroshima, like their like a brief history and stuff about their life, and then what it was like during the day of the explosion and the days afterwards, and how they were affected directly. And it's pretty fascinating, and it's all really, really well done. Be interesting to see if they have it all up on a real web page on the internet, so that you could access it otherwise. Because it's like we sat there for like an hour, just like mesmerized by these explanations of what these people went through. It's kind of hard to watch, though, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, they're kind of smiling sometimes because some of the things they're talking about, are happy memories, like their family members and stuff that they may have lost during that. They're talking about, how more than just a bomb. They're talking about themselves. So like, you can see that they are human beings. Like you're getting background. Like they were going to school, or this guy was like a driver on like a streetcar type thing, like a trolley sort of system, and he was talking about his job and how he got promoted quickly. And I mean, he was smiling about things, and then you talk about this bomb, and like he would like break down and cry. So it was pretty intense to watch some of this. Yeah, this is crazy. A lot of the signage here is kind of interesting, the way that they've decided to phrase things. They definitely don't point blame at the United States or the Allied powers for the bomb being dropped. And they don't really say that it was their fault that they were involved in the war, but they do say things like, you know, Japan was involved in a war following mistaken political ideals and things like that in some of the literature and stuff that you see. So it's kind of like they're kind of saying, look, we know we were kind of doing something we shouldn't have done, and the bomb was a result of our actions, without actually going along and saying that. Not sure if that's the actual consensus of the way people feel, or if that's just what they want you to think they feel through the way that they present the memorials. But you definitely don't get the feeling that they're pointing a finger at the United States and like, oh, this evil country that bombed us. That's definitely not at all how any of this has been presented. And a lot of the testimonial things that they had in that building, these people were talking about this river, which is right along the devastation area. And they said that, you know, for the next couple days, bodies would just float down the river, like piled on top of each other, and they'd go down and collect them up and have them cremated or whatever. This hall is basically a history of Hiroshima and Japan in World War II. Some of the things that they write is like straight up, Japan did something wrong. Like, they are talking about how many people they killed in Beijing, and they're talking about how they started the Pacific War. Like, straight up, it says Japan started the Pacific War when they bombed Pearl Harbor. But some of the things are a little bit like, they were like, we colonized Korean Peninsula, and that's not quite how the Koreans see it. So it's interesting. This is a weird like vibe between the Japanese and the Koreans. Like, Japanese just won't admit that they did a horrible bunch of atrocities in the Korean Peninsula for some reason, and the Koreans are really mad about it. And it actually, a little bit of animosity still lingers around between the two groups of people. It's interesting that they, even while they're admitting to starting the Pacific War, will talk about the Korean Peninsula in that manner. This diorama kind of shows before and after, and this is before. You can see all the buildings, and this one is after, and everything is gone. A couple days ago, I was on the internet and I was reading about, you know, just the atomic bomb and the dropping and everything, because we were going to be here, and I figured I'd educate myself a little bit. And it was talking about the time period right after the bomb fell, and all of the telecommunications, or the telegraphs and phone systems and everything around Hiroshima just like went dead. And people in Tokyo and in larger cities and government buildings and stuff, they were like, what just happened? Like, it didn't make sense that everything could have just blacked out instantaneously all at the same time. So in Tokyo, they took a pilot and another guy got in the plane with him, and the leaders in Tokyo were like, fly down to Hiroshima and see what happened, because they couldn't get word like of any like of these big explosions, and they couldn't determine what was going on. It was all very jumbled. So like, he instantly got in his plane and flew down. It took like an hour for him to get here, and he got to, you know, over Hiroshima, and it was gone. And he landed and started putting together like rescue operations and stuff. And I mean, imagine being that guy, having to radio back to your, you know, essentially the emperor. I mean, he's going to get back up to the line to him and be like, well, there was a city there and it's not there anymore. And I mean, just like the shock, that's a crazy thought. I mean, there's so many like little like stories that it would revolve around such a giant event that are just phenomenal stories. It's really amazing.